Hello, welcome to episode 9 of Harmonious World. I'm joined this week by bassist Mark Wade from his home in New York. You'll get the whole story as we talk about how we met in February, and I was blown away by his playing. He's got a new album out, and you can see the link to that in the show notes. So I hope you enjoy our conversation.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to see you.
You too.
How's everything there?
Oh, probably pretty much the same as it is there. So where exactly are you? You in New York City?
Yeah, I'm in the borough of Queens, right? So if you have a rough sense of New York geography, we have the island of Manhattan, and on one side is the East River. The United Nations is at dead ends at 42nd Street, and right on the other side of that river is Queens, and I live right on the other side of the river, so I'm very close. If I get on I'm the first stop in Queens on the subway here, so if I get on my stop, although I haven't been on the subway in quite some time,
No.
if memory serves me correct, the first stop is Grand Central Station.
Wow.
So like in 20 minutes I can walk out my front door and be in Times Square, so I'm pretty close.
Wow. So which bridge do you go over?
The bridge here that I'm looking at right now out my window is the 59th Street Bridge, otherwise known as the Queensboro Bridge.
Oh, okay. All of those bridges are iconic, aren't they?
Yeah.
in the films that we see. It's like if there's a film based in London, you see a red bus, you see a black taxi, and you see Buckingham Palace or Big Ben or something. So, and it's with New York, I think it's the bridges into Manhattan.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm very excited. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, good to be here.
It's brilliant. So I want you to tell me all about, I know the story, but tell for my listeners how you got to be a bass player.
Yes. So, I started playing bass. Now if you listen to my music, primarily what you hear is the acoustic bass, but I started on electric bass. And I started playing electric bass when I was just going into high school here, so about 14. At the time, there was kind of a fad among some of my friends. They were leaving the skateboarding fad and going into playing the guitar fad. And I was very late. I was very late coming to that fad. And because everybody had already bought a guitar, they said, "Hey, Mark, you'd probably be good at bass," just because I didn't want somebody else to play the guitar,
Yeah.
So I said, sure. I didn't know any better. They were already doing it. I tried it, and I was hooked right away. So it was kind of a random happenstance that I picked the instrument. But once I did, I was really into it. And I started practicing on a regular basis, and I was self-taught a year up until I went to college, and I did go to school for music. So I was always very serious about it, just a little unstructured until close to the end there.
Right. And it's interesting that you started on electric bass. I remember you telling me that when we met back at Benslow earlier in the year. Yeah. And I find that fascinating because that's not, I don't know. Is it the usual way for string bass players?
No, I've gone the complete opposite way. Most people go. The usual pattern is this: people are forced to learn how to play music when they're a kid, and it's usually classical music, right? And then later they rebel and they want to play like rock and roll and Pink Floyd and do that thing, right? Yeah. I went the complete opposite way. I started playing popular music, rock music, all of that kind of stuff, and then kind of continue to work my way backwards. I was always interested into, well, if this band, who are they influenced by? And that would take you back a generation.
Okay.
And then who was that band influenced by? And you'd go. And so I kept going backwards and eventually started to find music that started to run into jazz.
Right.
And I was just always curious. So I was always into trying something new. I didn't grow up with jazz in the house. I didn't grow up with music in the house. It was always something that I kind of found on my own.
Wow. I mean, there's such an unusual story. I've spoken to, several other people for this podcast. And as you say, many of them have done the traditional, and especially growing up with music in the house. It's fascinating that you've reached such a sort of high level without that traditional route. It's fascinating.
It's very much, I was the first person in my family to go into the arts and to be in music. So it was something that was pretty foreign to my family, to be quite honest with you. It required a lot of convincing at times. But it's just, it's hard to explain. And the funny thing is that, prior to me playing the electric bass, when in public school here, people were introduced to instruments, and you were said, okay, you could join the band at your school or whatnot. I had no interest in it, like none. I had friends that played music. I looked at it with absolute just disinterest. And then one day, it obviously things changed. Yeah.
It's incredible, isn't it? It really is. It really is. Because I just voted for you in the Downbeat poll.
Thank you.
And you're up there with, I mean, there are some incredible names on that list.
Yeah.
These are big, big names.
Yeah.
How does that feel to be among those people?
It's well, obviously it's a great honor, right? The biggest honor of my career to date would have to be being on the ballot. Just to be on the ballot for the poll for Downbeat is an honor. But I've been voted in now 3 of the last 4 years where I've made the cut for the finals. And a funny story here, actually, the very first time, this kind of sums up the feeling of what it's like to be on this poll for me. The very first time I was on the poll, I didn't know it. Downbeat magazine doesn't tell you if you're on the poll. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So when so they sent out an email just saying vote in the Downbeat readers poll, a generic email, not to me specifically. And I said, I don't have time to do that. Left it alone. Go to a rehearsal here in the city. It was a classical music rehearsal because I play classical music now too. Talk about going backwards. I ended with classical music, started with rock and roll, right? So I go to the rehearsal, play the rehearsal, pack up, I leave. I'm on the subway. I'm down there with my bass. Someone from the rehearsal walks up to me who I don't really know. He was a clarinet player. Now I know him, but I didn't really know him. And he says, "Hey, Mark, how are you?" And I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he says, "Hey, nice rehearsal and congratulations on being on the ballot for Downbeat Music or Downbeat magazine." I said, "What are you talking about? I'm not. You must have me confused with someone else." He said, "No, go home and check it out." Sure enough, I go home and there's my name on the ballot. I would have never known if I hadn't run into this guy in the subway on the way home from wasn't even a jazz rehearsal.
Wow.
So of course I told all my friends and I was super excited. I figured nothing will really come of it. The results come out 6 months later. I immediately open it up and I look right at the bottom of the list because I figured if I snuck on by some miracle, I'm at the bottom of the list. I look at the bottom of the list and it's George Mraz. I says, well, what are you going to do? It's George Mraz. What an amazing bass player, right?
Yeah.
So I put it away. Later, I pick it up and I didn't look high enough on the list. I was actually in the middle. Out of 20 names, I was actually at number 10. And I just laughed, I think, for about 5 minutes because what else can you do? I mean, what a crazy story.
It is a crazy story. I mean, I heard you play by accident because I went to the Marco Marconi gig because I love Marco's playing. And I'm like, and it was like, oh yeah, he's got this bass player who's flown in from New York and he's just arrived now. I was not expecting great things because, not only did I not know your name, but I didn't know you're playing and you just flown in from New York and you would be jet lagged. So, and
Very much.
I was completely blown away. It was amazing. I mean,
thank you.
It was an amazing gig. I think was it February?
Yes, good memory. Yeah, it was February. I want to say it was early February. It might have been as early as February 2nd or second when I left the United States. I think it was the third when I got to you guys. And that was, I got in that day. I struggle. Some people do better with it than others. I struggle mightily with jet lag coming and going. There's nothing. I just struggle with it. But, I rallied for the concert. And what a nice venue and moment that was there at Benslow. It was a great concert. It's a great space. Marco and I went on to teach a master class there over the course of the next few days. I just can't say enough nice things about the folks there at Benslow, how great they were, how hospitable, and what a great time we had teaching the course. Now, obviously, everyone's plans are very much flexible these days, I think, up in the air. But on the books, anyways, I'm scheduled to go back, I think, the second week of April to play another concert and teach with Marco and hopefully some more concerts in the area as we did last time.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And that would be really nice. As you say, Benslow, I mean, it's such a special place.
Yeah.
And the venue, I mean, that room is lovely and the people are great. The audiences are fantastic as always. So it was a real honor. So I was really pleased that I got a chance to meet you then. And if I hadn't met you then, I wouldn't have come across your other music. And I have to say, Songs from Isolation is just an incredible composition. I mean, I want everybody to know about it and to listen to it, because it's so much fun. And I think the those I want to say 5 pieces, yeah,
Mm-hmm,
1, 2,
mm-hmm.
3, 4, 5, yeah, 5 pieces.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They've all got a very different feeling, and then you've got the videos to go with them. And I was really pleased that I was able to, I mean, I think I said to you in my email, I kind of dipped into them and went, oh yeah. And then I realized that there's kind of a theme, and I love the way it ends with you and your wife singing, and the change of clothes. I thought that was hilarious. and the picture at the back, which ends up with the picture of what's his name?
Bob Dorough. With Bob Dorough, yeah. So that was the story behind that tune. That's Nothing Like You, and Miles Davis devotees will know that track as the very quirky ending track from the 1967 album Sorcerer, right? From his very famous the '60s quintet with Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock, etc. And when you listen to that album, it's cutting edge modern jazz with the best players on the planet, right? And then you get this last track with somebody singing, which is just it's sonically, it's almost shocking, just how different it is. And it's this quirky track. It goes by in about 2 minutes. And you don't even know what happened, and it's over, right? It's this very odd kind of track, and so but I always loved it. I always thought it was this very hip tune. I always wanted to do it, and it was perfect for this project, I thought, because there's no piano in the original arrangement, and so we don't have any piano here. I recorded this whole project, Songs in Isolation, right here at home. All the video and all the audio was captured here, so we had to get a little creative with. I had to get creative with how I presented it, and so because I have a singer on hand, my wife here, we thought it would be fun to do it. So
but it's more than fun. I mean, the melody is. I mean, how you learn that, I don't know, because it's not a catchy little tune, and it's beautiful. I mean, her voice is fantastic. Anyway,
thank you.
And it seems to fit. You did very well with your choice of wife, because her Terry's voice goes so beautifully with your bass.
Thank you for many reasons. Yes, I did. Thank you.
Did she know the song before, or did she learn it for this?
She learned it for this. This is something that had been on my radar for a while, and I had been threatening to and this isn't it's an obscure song. This isn't like, hey, first page of the American Songbook, it's this tune. This is not a tune that gets performed very much, even here in New York, with like hardcore people who are really into jazz and really know the stuff. This is still a song that it's people don't know it. For that reason, you can't just pick up sheet music, right? And there's very, very few recordings. It was recorded before this by I can't remember the name of the singer who did the original, but there is another version of this, and then one by a local artist about 20 years ago here. So anyways, I had to transcribe this. This is a long story to get to the point that I had to transcribe it, and I'm usually very busy, and I never had time to sit down and do it. And now with, when I found myself a little bit more time on my hands here, I said, hey, I was always threatening to do this, and I was thinking of putting together this project, and I said, let me check it out. Especially, I always thought it was a quirky tune, but really transcribing it and getting inside the guts of it made me realize just how quirky it is.
Yeah.
I mean, the harmony, it never stays the same ever. It's always changing. When the theme comes back, it's in another key anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really out there kind of tune. So.
Yeah. Is it a Miles Davis composition?
No, it's not. And I'm sorry that I don't remember the name of the original writer, but it was written. The album was 1967 that it was released on, but I think it goes back to a recording session that he had done a few years earlier. So I want to say somewhere around 1963, 64 was the original recording. Okay. Maybe, and it was a female vocalist, and I'm sorry I don't have her name for you here, but again, just a It's an oddball thing. The arrangement, however, that specific arrangement, which we're pretty faithful to on this recording, is actually arranged by Gil Evans, right? The famous
Right.
arranger with Miles in the collaboration. So the original arrangement on the Miles record is percussion, drums, bass, and three horn players, I think. So what I did is, well, I have the bass. I play the percussion parts on the bass to mimic that. We do the same arrangement. I transcribe the harmony as not from the piano, but as outlined from the bass and the horn parts. They're the ones that outline the harmony, and I transcribe the horn parts as well. And so I tried to be as faithful to all of those things I could, considering that she's singing in a different octave than Bob Dorough because she's a woman and not a man.
Yeah.
And I'm playing the horn parts with the bow, but I'm an octave lower than where the horn parts are sounding. So we had to get a little creative, but basically, if you hear this, it tries to be as faithful a tribute to the recently late Bob Dorough, who such an amazing artist.
Oh, exactly. Yes. He another icon. We've lost so many recently, but then I think isn't that what music is all about? It's about the passing of the baton.
Yeah. Yeah, there is an element of jazz audiences that love to listen to records from a certain period, the 50s and the 60s, and there is so much great music from that period you'll never discover it, over the whole of your life. That being said, I think it is important to remember that music's still being made today, and there can be a balance. That doesn't mean look, jazz is an art form that pays incredible homage to, the people of the past and where you've come from and your roots. That's so important. But I think it is also important, as you say, to pass the baton forward.
Yeah. Fantastic. So talk to me about Songs from Isolation. Let's go through each song in turn and try and sort of get our heads around it. So it starts with Hours Till Dawn.
Yes.
How did that one come about?
Okay, so Hours Till Dawn, it's funny, actually. There are two tracks on this recording, Hours Till Dawn and A Conspiracy of Lemurs, and
I love that one. Yeah.
I love the title. Makes me laugh every time I say it.
Exactly.
And I'll explain in a moment. But if these two tracks I wrote right after I came back from Benslow.
Oh,
believe it or not. Yeah. What I found is that I would like to have, as I start to get out of New York and I start to travel a bit more, and especially as I go overseas and I'm playing with people who aren't in my band, I'm not bringing my trio with me. It would be nice to develop kind of a book of tunes that are a little more user-friendly as far as just showing up and doing them. When you saw me at Benslow, not only was I, jet lagged, I hadn't played with Marco in 2 years, and we saw each other for about an hour before the concert to kind of go through things a little bit, and then, bring everybody in the room. So it's practical to have some tunes that are going to be conducive to that environment. And some of the stuff off my regular records, it requires a little bit more rehearsing. So those two tunes were written right after my trip back. But specifically, Hours Till Dawn, wasn't written specifically for this project, therefore. So I had to make some adaptations to an all-bass band where I'm playing the percussion part, the drum part, the bass part, the guitar part, the horn parts, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So this track, like a lot of other tracks, I try to create a range of colors so it doesn't all sit in the bottom, as some bass records can. That's a danger. So I was really, really very laser focused on orchestrating this out as much as I possibly could, given the limitations of the two instruments, of electric and acoustic bass.
Yeah. And you talk about it being floaty. There's a dreamlike quality about it, isn't there?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And that Hours Till Dawn, I guess that's where the title comes from. It's that it's a sense of something that's not quite real, or you don't know how real it is.
Yeah, that's a great interpretation. The idea of it's the anticipation of something to come that's not quite realized. So because it has that kind of, there's a certain motion and drive that I feel like there's two. Musically, if you break it down, there's a straight eighth groove to it and a swing part of it. And that push and pull between the two kind of creates a certain kind of drive forward and also back. The swing part relaxes a little, the straight eighth part kind of pushes forward, and that tension back and forth. And in the video, which for those of you who get a chance to see the video, you'll see that I always had that idea of feeling floating or flying, and so the sky features very prominently in the video, including some special effects magic. The sky comes inside as well. At a certain
exactly.
point.
Yeah, very strangely.
Yes.
Yeah. Brilliant. And so then we move on to Intents and Purposes.
Yeah. So this was I was really excited about this one. I love recording. I love the recording process. And that recording process, if you're recording mostly jazz music or classical music, traditionally, they're essentially capturing a live performance in a room, right? As opposed to a pop record where they're building it with this track and this layer and that layer and this overdub. And so it's a very different process of building the music. Those are two very different processes, I should say. And I always, actually, having done a little bit of pop recording and stuff, not a ton, but some, I actually think the way of doing those layers is really fascinating. The downside is it's not the same energy sometimes as just a live performance of people in a room playing together and the interaction. That being said, you can do some pretty cool things by layering tracks and sounds. And so Intents and Purposes was my first opportunity to do something just like that, where I could build the music in the studio, so to speak. It's not a piece that could be performed live. It's not like the way that I've done it, and it's but it kind of takes me into some different directions that I couldn't otherwise go with my regular band.
Right. And actually I was going to get to this at the end, but we'll talk about it now.
Sure.
What I like about Songs from Isolation is that they record this moment in time when you're in a room, you're in your home on your own, working out how you're going to do this. And hopefully you'll never have to do this again. Once we go back once we go forward into the new musical routine of whatever that looks like, hopefully you'll be able to take these will morph into different versions. My guess is that these songs will appear in different ways, and they'll never be the same as this.
I totally agree with you there. I think that certainly some of them I will play, out. There were a few that were very kind of specifically written for this, and Intents and Purposes, talking about it is particularly because of its style of it isn't a song per se. It's kind of 4 musical vignettes, like 4 little musical interludes that have these, sometimes feature more prominently, an arco, classical bass sound with a jazz sound on top of it, or electric bass, paired with an acoustic bass doing, in these very different kind of tonalities and sounds and timbres. So that while that might be tough, certainly all of it, but who knows, that could turn into something as well too. So, but you're right, none of it will ever exist in this specific iteration. It really won't be. It won't.
No. And if you came to Benslow and you played one of these, it wouldn't sound the same. It's not going to, because you can't play 2 basses at once. And,
Thank God for that.
Yeah. Right. Next one this is my favorite track. The title itself, A Conspiracy of Lemurs, and who knew? Who knew that was the collective noun for lemurs?
When I heard that, I don't remember where I heard it, but I said I have to use that somewhere. So people understand what I'm saying here. So you have a flock of geese, right? You have a pod of whales, and then you have a conspiracy of lemurs, right? So that is a group of lemurs is a conspiracy. Why? What are they plotting? We don't know, but and so like the song is kind of a reflection of this kind of whimsical and fun, kind of idea, along with the video that we go with it. So
and it's great, and I think that video in particular really shows your developing skills as a video maker. It's quite incredible to watch.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's funny, this whole process has been so much fun just for that reason. Of course, the whole record is just bass, and I'm recording all of it, and I'm I'm conceiving of the music, I'm playing the music, I'm recording the music, I'm recording the video, I'm doing all the editing. So it's a big task.
Yeah.
And actually, one of my favorite thing was to play the music. My second favorite thing was to do the video. Actually, recording the audio. I'm a reluctant audio engineer, shall we say. There's a reason why I pay other people and go to a studio and have them record my band, because I think it's very complicated. It's really difficult. And I've learned a lot from this process. But the video part has been particularly interesting to me, really has kind of animated me in a certain way. And so it's been so much fun to kind of get creative with all these different techniques. You see this video features, multiple me's interacting with one another on the screen, and, and a bunch of other fun stuff. And so it's just been so much fun to do that.
Yeah. And I love the bit where you walk across the screen and leave yourself, and then you walk back and you pick yourself up again.
Yes. It's fun because, when you film it, I'm filming it on the street kind of here in my neighborhood and whatnot. And there was a guy watching me do this. That's actually outside of a business that's there. And it was like a delivery guy was watching me do this, wondering what the heck I was doing. Because what it looks like is it looks like I just walk in front of a camera and then I stop and then I turn around and walk back. And he was really, he asked me what was I, in a sort of polite way, what the heck was I doing? So it's fun to do this stuff. It's fun to conceive of it, and then once you get into this whole video editing thing, and like I'm able to now work on this like professional level platform. Final Cut Pro, as a lot of people will know that program. It's amazing. It really, if you've got the chops and the camera, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah, great fun.
Yeah.
Right, so Blues in Isolation.
Yeah, so this was the very first thing actually that I recorded for this project. It's kind of what started the idea. And the style of the song and the video I think reflects this a little bit. This was done early on, like after we had locked down here in New York and you couldn't go outside, and there were a lot of bad things going on here health-wise for a lot of people. So this was my first attempt at doing one of these kind of tracks, or these multi-bass tracks, create the band. It's a blues, nothing super fancy in that sense of compositionally, meant to just be kind of, a vehicle, kind of a vehicle for soloing over the instrument. And then there's I put in the interlude there with the bowed section, with a nod to Stanley Turrentine's Sugar, so it's a little bit of a quote there. And then visually, that was my first attempt at trying to do a music video where the video is in black and white with the exception of my shirt. And it kind of is like the shirt color is a visual reference so that you know which bass part you're watching. The percussion guy has a blue shirt. The bass line guy has a green shirt. The solo guy has a red shirt. Yeah.
I hadn't picked that up. I'm going to watch it again. And because I'd obviously picked up the different color shirts, but not the significance of them.
I thought it would be helpful just because, it's not necessary. Obviously, you watched the music and you did it, but I thought it was, if not for me as an editor, helpful to know like what part I was editing and looking at. But it was also kind of a cool visual effect that I had just kind of learned of, like, everything's black and white except for one thing. And so that was kind of the conceit.
Yes, okay. And which brings us to Nothing Like You, where the clothes become completely different. That's just...
we filmed that on our anniversary, our wedding anniversary here, because we were still, we couldn't go anywhere, couldn't go out to dinner, couldn't, do anything to celebrate. And we thought, well, you know what, let's film the video today. We're going to do this. So it was really a ton of fun. My wife is a tremendous sport to put up,
obviously,
because there's the video features something like 10 costume changes or something, and not all the ones we did made the video. So there were more than that we did, believe it or not. And that's a lot of costume changes for 2 minutes of music, but it worked out well. And there's a fun fact there. The video features a photograph or a quote unquote painting, which is constantly changing through the video. And we end with Bob Duro, but there's also there's a cat. Our cat Mia is there, and Buckingham Palace makes an appearance very quickly. That was from my trip, to Benslow. I had a day off while I was over there for a week, so I went into London and was a tourist for a minute. So that was one of my pictures from when I went to go see Buckingham Palace. I thought it would be funny to include it.
It was, yeah, very good. Okay, so this is your sort of 5-piece celebration of lockdown. How are you releasing it?
So, this was initially, I wasn't really planning to make too big of a deal of this, to be quite honest with you. This kind of came about, the impetus to really do it was, I have a few reviewers down in South Africa who are fans of my music, and I had done Blues in Isolation, and I sent it to him, and he said, well, that's really nice, but I don't really review video. But he had a niece who is part of a cultural institution down there, and they've gone all online, right, all virtual, and they're playing videos. She might be interested. So they said they were. But the catch was they would only play videos that had not yet been released. So because I have tons of videos on YouTube and all this stuff, says no, they have to be stuff that hasn't been released yet because people buy tickets and all this stuff. I said, okay, give me a little time. Let me go make some videos and I'll be right back.
Right.
So 6 weeks later, I finished another 4 videos. And I got back to her and they said they'll take it. So because I'm going to be releasing the album, and because of that and the interest, is I've shared it with some reviewers and stuff, and then they're like, they'd like to review it and whatnot, I'm going to make a formal release of this. So the date will probably be this summer. It'll be released kind of in conjunction with, hopefully, this first performance down in South Africa with this culture institution down there, and maybe another one here in the States where we might do like a viewing party or something to kick it off. The people can go to my website, which is markwademusicny.com, or if you just Google Mark Wade or Mark Wade Music, I'm the first thing that comes up in the search engine these days, luckily, so I'm pretty easy to find. And the videos will be, once we have the release date, the videos will be available on the website. Tracks will be available. Audio tracks from the videos will be available for purchase as well. So, and then in general, I'm looking at a few other things about distribution partners for like Europe and UK and outside of the US. So these things are all kind of unfolding rather rapidly here. So while I don't have a release date right now, I will have one soon, and I think it will be fairly soon. So
Excellent.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Brilliant. That's great. And I hope that people listening to this podcast will go and listen to your music. So
thank you.
No, that's brilliant. So what does the future hold? Have you got gigs booked in? Have you got tours booked in? Are things starting to move now?
Nothing is moving here. We do not anticipate anything moving here actually for quite some time. Lincoln Center, Carnegie Hall, the Met Opera, Broadway is all shut for sure till at least January 2021.
Oh, really?
And that doesn't mean they're opening in January 2021. It just means for sure they're shut down till then. I don't anticipate playing in front of a live audience here till at least sometime in the next year.
Wow.
Because that's where things are, unfortunately, here in this country with how things have been managed, shall we say. So, I will say that things are much better in New York as far as just the public health situation, as far as the infection rates and people are healthier. People are, thank God, not dying. I think the other day we recorded 0 deaths for the first time since March. So we're doing much better here, but we're still under a lot of restrictions. And like I said, I don't anticipate any live performances, unfortunately, for the rest of the calendar year.
Wow.
So what a good time to release a virtual project on video, because it might be the best way to do it. There may be a few live streaming options here that I have that could happen in the fall for me. But yeah, the reality is that things here have, we've been shut down since the middle of March, and it could be a year before we get moving again. And that's a long time, especially in a business that is, in the best of times, sometimes rolling down the street with missing a wheel and the back is on fire. The music business can be a difficult place. So right now it's more about, luckily I'm in a spot where, I have some teaching online. I teach at a university. So I've been able, I'm okay. But I just know that the general music community at large, some people are really struggling to hang on. And so I'm rooting for everybody to pull through this, both the players and the institutions, and see what we got when we come out the other side.
Yes, because of course, while you've got players who are struggling and composers and, all the rest of it, the institutions won't survive without the musicians and vice versa.
It's a tough situation, so I think it's really about, we have to be flexible. It's a wait and see mode. Like I said, I'm more fortunate than some that I have some teaching stuff that I'm able to do online. But the future of live performances, unfortunately, here still a little ways away.
Right, because here in the UK, we can now do outdoor live performances.
Oh, okay.
With certain restrictions and the whole social distancing thing, and but it is gently, slowly starting. But I saw that there are all sorts of things where people are starting to do sort of drive-in music performances and that sort of thing. But now the big promoters are saying they don't want to get involved in that, or they're holding back a little bit, because if local lockdowns get put in place, that might have an impact, on people who've bought tickets and and artists being able to get out, or so it is so difficult.
It's a mess. Look, I really don't think that we'll start to get back to normal until there is a vaccine, and that vaccine's been distributed to a large part of the population. Because even when they open up, let's just say that I have a concert with my band that was booked originally in September 17th. I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. Yeah. But let's just say that it did. It's about also people feeling safe and confident to go into those spaces. And I don't blame people for being cautious, particularly here in New York. I mean, look, we were very hard hit here. A lot of people unfortunately did lose their lives. A lot more people did get sick with complications. Yes. And we are unfortunately set up. We are a great city for pandemics because we're all very tightly packed. Yeah. And so if people are cautious, I think that's good. I think it's good to be cautious, because I think we're more likely to have a music business come back when things are taken care of properly, rather than it's only halfway.
Yes, and you've got to have the vaccine available to everybody, haven't you? Because otherwise it really just doesn't make any sense. No. It doesn't work like that.
If the band has been vaccinated, but the audience, it's not going to help us out very much.
No, exactly. Well, thank you so much for talking to me, Mark. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. It's so great to see you again after seeing you at Benslow. And look, if things work out and God willing and the powers that be, I will be able to come back to the UK here in the spring. So fingers crossed that will work out. If not, then I'm sure it will just get pushed back as, Benslow they're very open to having me come back to teach there again and play, and as well as the other venues that I was fortunate to land while I was there. So I hope to see you in person, if not soon, then a little later than that.
Yeah, absolutely. In time, it will happen. Yes. We just have to, I think appreciate where we are right now. And, and I appreciate the fact that I've been healthy. My kids have been healthy. My parents, they're in their 80s.
Fantastic.
They're doing fine. They're just frustrated because they're bored. Well, better that than in hospital is what I say.
Yes, very much so. That's good to hear that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing those videos with me. It was amazing to see them and a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, it's my pleasure to share them. And I look forward to sharing them with everyone here, pretty soon.
Good. Keep us posted on dates and things.
I certainly will.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Take care. Be well.
And you. Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening in on that conversation with Mark Wade, bassist extraordinaire. And I look forward to the time when he can come over here again. And you can check out all of his details are on the show notes. Please do let me know what you think of Harmonious World. The usual: subscribe, review, let me know what you think, follow me on social media. And thank you so much for listening. We've got exciting people on the list coming up for my interviews, and speak to you soon. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.